Do you want to be involved with one of my future videos? Stay tuned to the end of the video for more details. Hello, I'm Harrison. I run these here parts. We just had a new set drop recently in Magic, and I've become a bit of the creature type guy in my corner of the internet. So I wanted to unpack some of the new stuff, maybe make some comments, tell some bad jokes, do a little dance, make a little love, get down tonight, you know, the whole 9 yards. There were 166 new creatures printed in the new Murders of Karlov Manor. I'm just going to say murders for the rest of this video. The whole set name is a bit of a mouthful if I say it every other line. It also cuts down on me messing up its preposition. Is it of Karlov Manor? Is it at Karlov Manor? In? On? Let's take a look at the good, let's take a look at the bad, and let's take a look at the straight up weird. We'll start off with Detective. Before Murders, there were 6 cards with a creature type Detective. They all exclusively came from the Doctor Who crossover, which came out this past fall. From someone without R&D's knowledge, it's impossible to know which one came first. The Doctor Who expansion including detectives, or Murders including detectives. But it's easy to believe that if you have one, it's a lot easier to make the other one seem more legitimate. They could easily prop one up by having the other one right behind it. Since then, we've only had them in Murders, but we haven't had too many opportunities. They also show up in the Murder Commander product and the Clue crossover product, but I consider that all under the umbrella of Murders. Currently there are 70 detectives in Magic. There are very few creature types that ever come even close to that number, but because the vast majority of this creature type comes from one set, it's hard to exactly tell if this creature type actually possesses some themes throughout the creature type, or if this is just a result of like 90% of the creature type being in one set. Like on one hand, it makes sense that a bunch of detectives care about clues, like those ideas just fit well together even outside of Magic. But on the other hand, it's really hard to tell if the disguise mechanic or the collecting evidence mechanic should be considered detective mechanics. For one, this is the first set that either disguise or collect evidence has shown up in, and for another, these mechanics weren't exclusive to the creature type. It's always interesting to see a new creature type hit the scene and get developed. I just wonder that since the concept of detective feels like it definitely has to fit in a certain world to be actually useful, how often are we going to see it? It's at 70 creatures now, but will this be another creature type that gets printed a bunch when it first comes out, and then we'll look back on it in a decade and maybe it hasn't even hit 80 creatures yet? Not to say this is a good or bad thing, it's just a very of its time thing in Magic, and there are quite a few creature types that are stuck like this. They got cards in the original set, and if they're lucky, they maybe got some cards in an additional set after. But since then, nothing. And they've been stuck at like a dozen cards since then. Maybe it's the flavor of the month, maybe it's a new type we'll just see here and there from now on. Overall, I do think that if this creature type gets tons of support in the future, it'll likely be through Universe Beyond products. After this whole detective talk, let's dive right into some of the special appearances in this set. Here are creature types with 30 or fewer cards that showed up in this set. Unicorn got its 30th card. It probably isn't good enough to make any decks on its own merit unless you're running a unicorn deck. But if you're trying to put together a unicorn deck, you better hope this isn't the last unicorn. Bard got its 25th card. As someone who's going to graduate in the spring with a degree in English, I really enjoy seeing bards that aren't music related. It also doesn't hurt that this card absolutely goes ham in a treasure deck. The amount of power this card packs, it could have been a rare 10 years ago. Thrall also got its 25th card. It's formatted like a classic stacks piece. This card has flash so you can lure your opponent into thinking they have the creature untapped, and then BAM! Homunculus too got its 25th card. I love pretty much every aspect of this card, from name to flavor text to caring about a niche creature type. Chef's kiss. Hellion got its 23rd card. It's just a big piece of draft chaff. It also pushes the extent of how much a disguise could do. Archon got its 21st card. It's a legend that cares about artifacts. It sets itself up like it wants to do Voltron, but it probably doesn't do enough to warrant that. Gorgon got its 20th and 21st cards. One will be forced into clue decks far and wide as the win con. Pop 5 clues and kill someone is a good deal. The other is a draft chaff piece of removal that probably won't see play anywhere else. Leech got its 18th and 19th card. I really like the design of Fester Leech. It does feel like it gets outclassed pretty easily, but if you have ways to sneak it by or pump it up, it could be fun. And you can always threaten to pump it up so it trades with the next 3, or you can just run the other Leech, who will give his Leech brethren Death Touch. Thopter also got its 19th card. Thopters get a lot of tokens and not a lot of cards, so it's interesting to see what makes it worth that jump from token to card. They've been trying to push this weird red land removal that is more specifically just non-basic lands. It's such a small thing, don't think it's as cool as they want it to be. Octopus got its 14th, 15th, and 16th card. It's interesting that they are just 3 very different cards. That's bound to happen when they aren't the exact same color identity 3 times, but these cards couldn't be more different. Goat got its 14th card. I think this is one of the cards that a lot of people saw and said, alright, this set's going to be a little more different, a little more goofy than we're used to. Based on how long it takes for them to make a set, I wouldn't be surprised if this card was inspired by Thor Love and Thunder's Screaming Goats, which then makes this even more embarrassing because that's all based off of like a decades old meme now. When corporate giants reference memes, it feels like the meme dies then and there. But even then, it feels like we live in a completely different world than when that meme died. Weird got its 13th and 14th card. Weird has always been, pun intended, a weird creature type. Like, it's original to Magic, it's totally unique to the Izzet, it just feels like it has some odd boundaries sometimes. They're like elementals, but not. Melik seems like a fun spell-slinging Voltron card that can help you cast those more expensive spells. Steam Core Scholar feels like they picked a list of words out of a hat and made a card. I got its 7th card. I can't make direct eye contact with this card without feeling unnerved. I swear the eye is following me. Mole got its 5th and 6th card. Fun fact for all of you to share at your parties. This is the first time 2 moles have been in the same set, or at least set on the same world. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect Bloomburrow to give us more mole cards, so this might not be the last time. Finally, in weird creature types that got cards, Lamassu got its 3rd card. At this point, it seems like we get a new one every 10 years or so. In the world of Ravnica, the Lamassu once hung out in the untamed outskirts of the city, but eventually rampant urbanization led to destruction of their natural habitat. Don't you just love fantasy and escapism? We know we're going back to Tarkir in the next couple of years, which is the only other plane to have a Lamassu card, so maybe, just maybe, we won't have to wait another decade for one of these guys. Now that we've gotten the most popular creature type and the little guys that are getting some support, let's take a last stop looking at the wildest creature types this set has to offer. Let's start off with an easy one, Octopus Fish. This is how I found out that octopus are not fish. A Magic card taught me more about zoology than the rest of the 38 years I've been alive. For those of you at home who are equally confused as I am right now, octopus are cephalopods, which exist outside of the typical mammal, fish, bird, reptile, amphibian system we've all been taught in like grade 2. Sticking with octopus, we also have Octopus Rogue. Most real-world animals become hilarious within the context of Magic the Gathering when you give them an occupational creature type. You've heard of animals with jobs, and that typically means a service dog, but not anymore. Move aside, dogs helping the blind. We've got an octopus with a knife and a mission. I think this whole idea of real-world animals with occupational creature types things extends to the Mole God, and I guess to a lesser extent the Mole Scout. At this point in Magic, we've had just so many gods that are just gods. They've only recently, in their grand scheme of things, started adding extra creature types to gods, so it's absolutely hilarious that a mole has ascended to goddom. All hail the mighty mole. The final one I'll leave you with is Cluefish. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, Cluefish. I understand to be a clue, a creature has to be an artifact as well, as clues are artifact types and not a creature type. But like, come on, he's trying his hardest. I also wanted to include this just because I think this is the best pun name in the set, but I almost appreciate the type line better than the actual name. So this was my spotlight of favorite creature types in the newest set. To the people writing in the comments about where are the Simic cards, it'll be a cold day in hell before I celebrate Simic. I'm trying to experiment with content here, so feedback is much appreciated. If you like it, I'll continue this in the future and might go back to older sets. If you hated us, I'll never do it again. I'll be responding to any and all comments posted within the first 24 hours of this video going up. Now, if you're still here, you might have heard that thing I mentioned at the start of the video about you being involved in a future video. I've been writing a script for about 6 months now. This is by far going to be the biggest video on the channel. Is an extreme deep dive into dragons as a creature type in Magic the Gathering. One of the parts discusses how people view dragons in the game of Magic. Do they like them? Do they hate them? And why? If you want me to read out what you have to say, please take a look at the link in the description for my dragon questionnaire. If I don't get too many answers, I'll probably read out every single one of them. Okay, thanks, bye.